Good morning, everybody. Many big American brands are caught up in the culture wars. Target, Bud Light, and Disney are all facing a backlash for their support of the LGBTQ community. But when it comes to all sorts of divisive social issues, major companies are now quite often taking a stand. It's a major shift in tone. Tony DeCopel brings us the story.
If your shoes could vote, who would they vote for?
Probably a Democrat.
The question at one time might have seemed crazy.
If your favorite beer were a person, who would it vote for, a Democrat or a Republican?
I will not answer that.
But in this day and age,
If the companies were people, you're saying they would vote for Democrats.
Yes. It's time beer made it up to women.
as more big brands sell not only their products, but their values, people notice.
They need to.
You think they need to do more?
Absolutely.
Some love it.
It's nice to be transparent, you know, in a world that you don't get that anymore.
People say that, oh, you can't be political. That is virtually impossible to live in a democratic society and not be political.
But many others
You like it when a company takes a stand on something?
Not particularly.
Not
no.
particularly.
would rather not think of politics when they shop.
I don't even think that they care. I think that they're just doing it just to look good.
It wasn't always this way. And in fact, during the civil rights movement, when the New York Times Magazine asked if corporations have a social duty to speak up, the head of U.S. Steel declared that's quite beyond what a corporation should do. So what changed?
The mission of a company is to give back to society and the business.
Amy Terpelik helps craft these strategies for the marketing firm Finn Partners.
And companies are focusing on longer-term, purpose-driven commitments and actions that relate back to their core business and their core values.
She says it's partly the push of investors, partly the sway of employees, and largely the expectation of customers themselves.
We're facing these incredible social and environmental issues we need to solve, and we need to solve fast. And they look to companies as having the resources, the speed, and the social innovations to be able to do that.
Surveys have suggested 70% of Americans now believe brands should take a stand on social issues, with nearly 2/3 saying they'll buy products based on their beliefs and values. But not all customers believe the same things.
Disney's posturing has alienated a lot of people now.
Florida Governor Ron DeSantis is locked in a political battle with Disney, for example, after the company publicly opposed a bill he later signed into law. Bud Light, meanwhile, faced a backlash and watched its sales plummet, all for sending a promotional can to a prominent transgender social media star.
This is absolutely dangerous to businesses that wade into these issues, and they really do it at their own peril.
Will Hild is executive director of Consumers Research, a nonprofit that's been issuing woke alerts about companies taking progressive stances.
Our message is simply this: serve your consumers, not woke politicians and activists.
Find the outlet that gives you joy.
He sees these campaigns as quite obviously a shift to the left and doesn't buy the idea that customers really want this kind of marketing.
It's a radical proposition, but I think they should just focus on selling high-quality goods and services at a reasonable price.
So you think corporate America, writ large, is running the risk of alienating half of their potential customers?
Yeah, there's no question about it.
One result is a recent boom in right-leaning companies.
We have the mission to provide coffee and culture to people that love America.
Black Rifle Coffee Company, for example, is a conservative alternative to Starbucks.
They condemned our views.
And the Daily Wire, a right-leaning media company, is dreaming even bigger.
Behold, Jeremy's razors.
With a line of anti-woke shaving gear, chocolate bars, and eventually, they say, children's programming.
Stop giving your money to woke corporations who don't think you deserve their product.
But none of that has deterred companies like The Body Shop,
being in total control of herself,
which works with Finn Partners and has a full-time activism team at headquarters.
So what changed?
I think for us, nothing changed. So
Corporate executive Nakiba King says activism at The Body Shop is more than a seasonal item.
The Body Shop was really founded around the belief that business can and should be a force for good.
And there are reminders of that belief in every store. even if not every customer appreciates it.
Your core customer clearly
Yes.
is A-okay with everything you're saying and doing and is coming back for more.
That's right.
But there are also customers out there who might want the luscious lychee or the shea or the you name it body product, but they pause because their politics, their positions are not yours.
So I'd invite them to come in or explore the body shop and learn what we support, because there's likely something in there that we can agree about. And we respect the fact that there are people who may not align with our positions, but we're firm in what we believe.
So sitting on the sidelines is not an option.
No.
All right, when we come back, we're going to talk about this. Dr. Melody Fisher is here to talk branding and marketing, so stay with us. We'll be right back. All right, welcome back, everybody. We are looking at branding this morning, and specifically political branding. Dr. Melody Fisher is an assistant professor in the communication department at Mississippi State University, and she is joining us at the table this morning. Dr. Fisher, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
So this is a discussion people are probably having, I'm thinking in workplaces, probably around their living rooms at home. Is this a discussion that your students are having in any of your classes?
Not necessarily. We did earlier when we looked at immigration reforms and how companies did come out and take stances then. But it's not really a major discussion in the classroom.
So when you look and we think about the piece that we saw with Tony DeCopel there before the break, in looking at whether or not consumers care about stances that companies make, in your professional opinion, how do you think this helps or hurts a company when they take a stance on an issue?
You know, and this is something I tell my students all the time, when it comes to public relations, it depends. If a company takes a stance, they are definitely saying that they are for something, but they have to be cautionary because they know that other people will take it as them being against something. So I think that when companies do take a stance, some people do appreciate that. Those consumers do appreciate them taking a stance, but they may alienate others.
And that was the question. You led me right into it. So there is that risk of alienating other people when you take a stance on something. I mean, do you think that when executives sit around the table and they're sort of coming up with these marketing ideas, they probably look at all of those things?
Absolutely. They look at who their core customer is, their core consumer is, and they understand that this is something that holds true to their values as well as the brand's values. And so I think, you know, with all of the activist groups who speak out against their stance, it really doesn't affect their bottom line.
We, you and I spoke about the Chris Rock special, the stand-up he did very recently on Netflix, Selective Outrage, and he touched a lot on this, on people, on celebrities, on companies, taking a stand for or against something. And, you know, he took issue with one company in particular, and his was that no one really cares. We just want the thing that you sell.
Absolutely, absolutely. You know, some people are very passionate about their causes and if a company aligns with that particular cause. But when it boils down to it, am I going to drive 30, 40 minutes farther to pick up something if I don't want to pick it up at a place that doesn't share my views? So it really depends on the item, it depends on the company, but moreover, it really doesn't matter.
We saw the young lady, one of the people that Tony DeCopel interviewed there, and she said she would invite people to come into that space, into her store, to, you know, even if you don't agree with what I'm talking about, at least try to be knowledgeable. And I think a lot of times that is the important thing to do. It's just about raising awareness. It's not about saying we're wrong, we're right and you're wrong.
Right, absolutely. It's about creating moments for education. And I think once people have open minds, they'll be willing to do that. But we don't see that all the time. Even with Target and what they've been undergoing lately, right? So they took a stance, they received a lot of pushback from it, and now they've had to retract well, not everything, but many of that collection.
So then what do you think, though, is the reaction or the backlash there? Is like you take a stand against something and then you start getting some pushback and you just kind of, you know, backpedal on what you're doing. Does that help you at all?
It does not help you.
And do you pull those people back in who you quote unquote alienated in the first place?
I think that you don't pull them back in because what you have done is given them more of a voice, right? We may not have known who that group was, but now because you have given them some type of validation and credibility, we know who they are. So I think if a company is to take a stand, they need to be sure of that stand and not backpedal.
And just accept the fact you're going to get some criticism.
Absolutely.
Especially if it's something that is challenging to someone's religious views and political views. I think that's where we find the most contention when it comes to politics and religion.
Absolutely. You know, back when Georgia passed a religious liberty law, many of the organizations that are headquartered in Atlanta signed a pledge, an anti-discriminatory pledge against that, speaking out against that. And many people were happy that they did that. So it's just depending on how serious you are about that particular stance, that legislation is what is going to drive that particular organization.
Well, one thing is for sure, this is nothing new. I mean, people and companies, organizations, entities have for years, really for generations, taken a stand on something one way or another. They may not have had social media, you know, as a conduit to get the message out, but I think that it's not something we're going to see stop. And I love what you say about it, seeing it more as an opportunity to have conversations, to educate people, and not to alienate and fight more and more with each other.
Absolutely. You know, I think social media has given a lot of people voices. It has eliminated the gatekeepers. They don't have to come through media anymore. They can go directly to the publics. And so I think organizations, brands need to be more aware of that, and they need to understand that those publics can be vocal and they can have the ability to make or break their organizations.
All right. Yours is a great perspective to have. Thank you for coming in and having the conversation. We appreciate it. All right. Coming up, you may think you're helping, but you're not. Some tips to save you money and help your dishwasher do its job, too. That's coming up next on Mid Morning. Welcome back, everyone. There is a growing child care crisis in America. In addition to rising costs, more than half the country lives in a child care desert where there is little or no access to child care. CBS's Meg Oliver shows us how two mothers are trying to solve the problem.
When this daycare shut down, what went through your minds?
What are we going to do? Who's going to take care of our kids?
How is this going to affect my job? Can I keep my job?
I remember calling 12 daycares one day and having all of them be like, wait list, a year and a half, maybe a year.
In Wisconsin, finding childcare is a hardship. There's one spot available for every 3 kids. That's considered a childcare desert, and 51% of the country lives in one.
So I actually did lose my job.
Sorry, I'm emotional.
That's okay.
So yeah, it impacted my performance too much last year.
Could you keep up what you were doing, taking care of your kids and working?
It was hard. Like, I put my family first instead of my job. And obviously, got repercussions from it.
Here in Outagamie County, population close to 200,000, more than 1,200 children are on a wait list for childcare, and many centers have stopped using a wait list due to the extensive wait. Last November, when this daycare shut down, full-time working moms Virginia Moss and Tiffany Simon took action.
We had dinner together 2 nights in a row, and we're just running numbers and figuring out what's going to make sense, and we felt like we could do it. Hi.
They bought the building, and within 2 months, the physical therapist and data consultant opened Joyful Beginnings Academy, hiring management, 20 daycare workers, and enrolling 75 kids.
Can you do that?
Daycare workers here can earn up to $17 an hour, compared to the state average between $11 and $13.
We've seen both sides. We felt the pain both sides. And so now we can go and educate that this is a problem and we need to do something about it.
Why do we got shovels?
It's a small fix in a desperate area. Their daycare already has a wait list of nearly 100 kids.
If Virginia and Tiffany didn't step in and reopen this daycare facility, where would you all be?
I probably would have had to turn around and sell my home, move in with my family.
Really?
Yeah.
One of us would have probably left our jobs.
What does this child care facility mean to your community?
I think it's bonded our community together, especially living in a neighborhood with a lot of little kids. We all kind of went through the struggle together.
Do you like them?
An American crisis affecting too many families.
Come here.
Meg Oliver, CBS News, Dale, Wisconsin.
All right, prices for just about everything continue to go up, and that includes car insurance, which has increased about 15% in the past year. Christian Benavidez has some tips on how you can save some money.
Kevin Amezaga says his 2019 Audi is becoming hard to afford
because of the insurance.
So what are you paying right now for car insurance?
I'm paying $351 a month, which is more than I pay for my car.
What do you pay for a car?
I pay $334 for my car.
So you're paying more to insure the car
than I pay for the car's loan, yeah.
Amezaga lives in Florida, where premiums saw the biggest increase in the country, more than $420 a year on average, to about $3,200 a year. But people nationwide are feeling the pinch. According to Bankrate, annual premiums have increased about $243 to more than $2,000.
One of the ways of bringing down the cost of car ownership is to shop around for less expensive car insurance.
Bankrate's Mark Hamrick says auto insurance is highly competitive, and cheaper rates can often be found with a little research. Sometimes bundling car and home insurance together can lead to a better rate. People who work from home may qualify for a low mileage discount, and car owners might consider cutting parts of their policy.
You may be paying for more car insurance than you really need. Do you need, for example, to have the cost of a car rental covered? Do you want to have essentially towing insurance?
Hamrick says it's important to review your policy every year to see if there are other ways to save money. Cristian Benavides, CBS News, Miami.
The average American family loses more than $6,500 a year in wasted energy. That's according to Consumer Reports. Michael George shows you how a few simple changes could save you money and be better for the planet.
Your home appliances and lawnmower could be burning more energy and money than you think.
People really do waste money by not, doing those little things that improve efficiency.
Paul Hope from Consumer Reports says that includes regularly cleaning your dishwasher filter and wiping down the gasket. And you can save water by not pre-rinsing the dishes.
Most dishwashers actually have a soil sensor built in to see how dirty the dishes are going in. When you pre-rinse, you're actually fooling it into thinking the dishes are cleaner.
To keep your stove in shape, clean up spills fast. And check that the flame is blue.
That means everything's working as it should. If it's burning yellow or orange, that's a pretty good indicator that you might have a clogged burner or something wrong with one of the burner tubes.
A lot of us store items on top of our fridge, but that wastes energy.
You can actually interfere with the fridge's ability to dissipate heat.
Hope says the ideal fridge temperature setting is 37 degrees. And food will last longer with veggies in the crisper drawer and meat on the bottom shelf where it's coldest. When it comes to the lawn, Consumer Reports says electric mowers are better for the planet, more efficient, and save money in the long run.
For years, gas was really the gold standard with outdoor tools, and that's changed in the last few years.
How big a difference can these changes make?
Over time, there's potential to save thousands of dollars by just taking care of the appliances you have.
A few simple changes adding up to a lot of savings. Michael George, CBS News, Yonkers.
Consumer Reports says it's a good time to upgrade to more energy efficient appliances due to the tax credits from the Inflation Reduction Act. From New York to Detroit to the Carolinas, more than 55 million people in the United States are under air quality alerts as wildfire smoke from Canada blankets a big section of our country. Karen Kefa reports from Washington, one of the cities coping with unhealthy air.
In New York City, the nation's capital, west to Detroit and down to North Carolina, millions of Americans are under alert for unhealthy air quality conditions as Canadian wildfire smoke floats a mix of pollutants through U.S. skies.
It affects every part of the airway system from the nose all the way down to the lungs.
So experts say take caution.
When the air quality is this bad, everybody should try to stay indoors.
Especially those with pre-existing conditions that impact the heart and lungs. Dr. Afif El Hassan is a pediatrician and spokesperson for the American Lung Association.
Make sure that you anticipate ahead of time if you need specific medications, especially inhalers for asthmatics.
With more than 9 million acres charred by Canadian wildfires so far this year, Dr. John Balmes of the University of California, San Francisco, and UC Berkeley says the eastern U.S. should anticipate future air quality concerns like the West does.
This is a wake-up call for those in the East Coast about what is in store for the future These wildfires are going to continue to be a problem.
And Dr. El Hassan says to play it safe for a few days after this haze clears.
The air can still be polluted and have a large number of particles in it for many days after the fires. So it would be important to monitor the air quality in your area before you decide to go outside and do a lot of outdoor activities.
In Washington, I'm Karen Kafa.
An explorer says his team has discovered something that you won't believe. We'll see next on Mid Morning. All right, we're back. An American scientist based in South Africa says he found something that could change what we know about the evolution of our planet. His team found evidence our ancient cousins had burials thousands of years before we started the ritual. Ian Lee reports.
To travel back in time, paleoanthropologist Lee Berger first heads underground.
These caves are filled with fossils. These fossils are probably over 2 million years old in front of you.
All of this? The U.S. explorer says he and his team in South Africa have discovered the oldest burial site in the world, predating human burials by at least 100,000 years.
That we have discovered a non-human species that buried its dead in a ritual fashion over and over and over again. And while they were doing that, they carved symbols on the wall above it.
Fossil remains of the Homo naledi were uncovered in these caves around a decade ago. Since then, researchers have kept squeezing into them looking for clues. But not everyone is convinced about this latest find, mainly because our Stone Age cousins had brains a third the size of ours.
I'm skeptical at this point because I'm not sure that they've accounted for every other potential process that's brought these bones together.
Scientists have yet to determine how old the cave markings are or who actually carved them, but Berger is confident it's a groundbreaking discovery.
It goes against everything that hundreds of years of humans trying to understand why we're so special.
Researchers say they'll keep exploring to unlock the complete story of human evolution. Ian Lee, CBS News.
The oldest burials previously unearthed were found in the middle of East and Africa and contained the remains of Homo sapiens. Those were around 100,000 years old. All right, stay with us. We'll be right back. All right, be sure you stay connected with us. We will see you back here next time. Have a great day.